Hi friends and welcome back to my channel, and today I have a little spooky story for you. Since it is still spooky season, I'm going to be telling you about a real life paranormal encounter that I had, but it wasn't just me. There was a whole group of people that experienced this. So let's just get straight on into it. Okay, so this story centres around a specific location in Glasgow, and that's called the Govan Hill Baths. So I heard about the Govan Hill Baths because I was asked to go there for rehearsals when I was part of a theatre group that put on nights of short plays. So we used one of the spaces in Govan Hill Baths as a rehearsal space, and that is how I first found out about it. But then further on from that, I have ended up doing multiple shows in the actual Govan Hill Baths facility, and also working on like street performances and stuff like that around the area. So I've become pretty acquainted with Govan Hill Baths. If you're from the south side of Glasgow, you will also probably be familiar with Govan Hill Baths. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory of the building, and then I'm going to tell you what my experience was, and you can draw your own conclusions from that. So Govan Hill Baths is an old Edwardian building, and it was opened between 1912 and 1970. It's currently closed for refurbishment, and I believe it'll be finished in 2023. But originally, Govan Hill Baths was a public bathhouse. So obviously back in the day, you didn't really have what we have nowadays with your own bath and shower and place to wash up in your home. You had to go somewhere to bathe and wash yourself and wash your clothes. So Govan Hill Baths was this public community bathhouse space. So yeah, it had the old steamy for washing your clothes, and then it had the actual public pool where you could, swim and bathe and all that kind of stuff. So right now it's under refurbishment. I'm just going to read out a bit of what is going to happen to the building. So it says the scheduled works will ensure that the building is wind and water tight, and it will refurbish 2 of the 3 swimming pools. In addition, new facilities will be created, including a gym, a yoga studio, a Turkish suite, I'm not sure what that is, a community kitchen, archive and learning space, all of which were chosen through community consultation. The building is due to reopen in 2023. So it sounds like it's going to be pretty amazing. The driving force behind all this is the Govan Hill Baths Community Trust, which is a grassroots charity organisation. And they do so many amazing things like running wellbeing activities, tackling food poverty and leading upcycling projects. So if you're interested in that stuff, if you're in the area, definitely check out their website, and I'll have that linked in the notes below. Anyway, putting all that history aside, I'm going to tell you my personal experience of being in this space. So, as I said, the first time I was in this space was for a rehearsal. We used kind of one of the little kitchen areas a good few times, along with some of the other little like side rooms. And then I actually did a show in Govan Hill Baths, which was called Desdemona, a play about handkerchief, and I played the titular character of Desdemona. And I absolutely loved that show. If you've never seen it, it's a great feminist retelling of a Shakespearean play, Othello, so it's told from Desdemona's perspective. It's so good. But anyway, I digress. So we did that in one of the spaces in Govan Hill Baths as well. We rehearsed in there, we performed in there for I think we did 4 nights or something like that. And I'd also been to see shows in Govan Hill Baths as well. And I will say, before this particular incident that I'm going to talk about, I never really felt anything going on in the space. Like I certainly didn't feel anything negative. I didn't really, it had obviously the feeling of being an old building. So it did kind of have a natural creepiness to it that just comes with being an old building, especially an old building that still has very much kept the style of how it would have looked back in the Edwardian era. Certainly the pool bit with the old little cubicles. I think when a building still retains its original features, it just has a slightly creepy vibe, because we're not used to seeing those things, and we know how old it is, and we're like, oh, so many people used to, come through here every day. There's so much history, and there's so much that could have happened. So it had the sort of general creepy vibes, but nothing beyond that. The only thing I will say is some parts of the building are extremely cold. I went to see a play in the steamy part, or well, it used to be the steamy. I went to see a play in there, and it is freezing. But honestly, I think that's just probably because it's an old building. It's not really made to retain heat the way we're used to buildings having now, having central heating and things like that. So I don't think that's anything paranormal. So anyway, getting on to the story at hand. So on this particular night, I was performing in a show called Life After Death, which is based on a World War II pilot who crashes his plane and dies, or spends some time in the in-between lands. He's in limbo, basically, in between worlds, and he meets various different people as well. So yeah, it was based in World War II. All the costumes were obviously of that era, the hair, the makeup, everything like that. So basically what happened was we had been, rehearsing the play in the baths space and all that, noticed anything weird happening, whatever. We got to the opening night of this show, and all the actors were in the green room, which is a little just sort of rehearsal space, little room for the actors to chill out in. And there was lots of chatter and noise. We were all kind of going over our lines, chatting to each other. So anyway, it was quite noisy is what I'm trying to get at in this room. There was I think there was maybe at least 10, 12 actors, maybe even more in this space. So it was pretty noisy. And we heard this knock on the door, and it was really distinct and really clear. And I'm just making this point because, as I said, it was very, very noisy. Every single person stopped what they were doing. Like every single conversation stopped because we all heard this knock on the door. And everyone kind of fell silent, and we were kind of looking at each other because it was the opening night, but it was far too early for like the audience to be coming in. Like that's the only reason we could have really thought as to why someone might be knocking on the door. Like we thought it was maybe our director saying, right, that's the audience coming in, but it was far too early for that. And nobody said anything. Like we were all just sitting there, like looking at each other, waiting for someone outside the door to say, can I come in, or say who they were? Because obviously it's a kind of dressing room as well. So people might be getting changed. Maybe someone didn't want to like barge in, but there was no sound. Like nobody said anything. It was just this knock. So I was like, that's weird. So I took it upon myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to like see who's at the door. So I opened the door and there's nobody there. And it's like a corridor. So I look down and up the corridor. There's nobody running away, trying to be mischievous or playing a prank or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. So my first thought is maybe it's our director who's come to, I don't know, tell us something, or blocking for the lights or sound cues or something like that. Like that was just my original thought, but it was still really weird, like why he would just knock on the door and then walk away. That didn't make any sense and very out of character for him. So anyway, I come out into the corridor and I go into the performance space, and there's some techie people sitting behind the desk, just sorting out the lights and stuff like that. So I walk up to them and I'm like, hi, did someone knock on the door there? Like, does someone need us for something? And they both looked at me like, I don't even know if they knew where our like green room door was. They're just in doing the lights and the sound and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of just both looked at me like, no one knocked on the door. I was like, okay. I was like, do you know if the director needs his friend in? Has he been in here? Has he said anything? And again, they're just looking at me like, no, like we're literally just trying to sort out the sound cues. Can you go away? They didn't say that. They were actually a lot nicer than that. But basically they were doing their own thing. They didn't know anything about knocking the door. So I was like, right, okay. So I walked back up the corridor and I walked to the front of the building, and our director was there like outside. I think he was putting up a poster or something like that. And I was like, hi, like, did you knock on the door? Do you need us for anything? And he just, again, looked at me like I was growing another head. And he was like, no one knocked on the door. And I was so confused. Listen, I wouldn't have been that confused if it was just me that heard it, but the whole room went silent. So I was like, I just couldn't explain it. And I was like, okay. So I went back into the rehearsal room and I was like, well, apparently no one knocked on the door. We all just collectively imagined things. And then there started to be like murmurs of the other actors saying, oh, it's probably a ghost. And I was kind of like, what do you mean? Like, is this place haunted? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, looking at it, but I hadn't heard anything. And then one of the actors, who's also a really good friend of mine, was like, yeah, this place is kind of notoriously haunted. There was actually a ghost hunting crew here that filmed an episode. It's on YouTube. You can go and watch it. And I was like, what? So he brings up this thing on YouTube of this ghost hunting tour, which again, I will link in the notes below if you want to watch it. It's like a half-hour episode and they do like paranormal investigations in Govan Hill Baths. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. I mean, I'm not entirely surprised, right? But I was just like, okay, I just hadn't heard anything like that. And then one of the other actors said, yeah, and it's kind of funny because we were doing a play that's set in World War II. And during World War II, this place was actually used as a morgue for all the dead bodies before they could cremate or bury them. And I was like, what? No, like I genuinely didn't believe it. I was like, no, you're kidding me on. No, you're winding me up. But then everyone else was like, no, that's true. Or at least that's what, the rumor has it, And I looked it up online and again, it seemed to be that was the case. So I was like, this is so weird. Like we're doing a play that's set in World War II. We're all dressed from that time period, hair, makeup, everything. We've even got like the set, like the props, like the old microphones, that everything like is legit. And this place was used as a morgue in World War II. That is so, so weird. So I genuinely got the feeling that I was like, I feel like we've awakened some sort of residual energy, or some spirit has been like, oh, I recognize these people. Like these look like they're from my time period, and they've given us a knock to be like, let us know that they're there. I don't know. It seems kind of outlandish, but it was just too much of a coincidence. It was just really, really strange. But yeah, I still don't really know what to make of it, but I just thought it was really, really strange that we're literally doing a play set in World War II, dressing the clothes, using the props, and this location was apparently used as a morgue in World War II. I mean, even if it wasn't used as a morgue, it would still have been an active place in World War II, like, or around that time period. You know, people were still using public, like, facilities. The people were still using steamies and the public bathing facilities. So it would have still been active, like, regardless, I think. So I don't know. It definitely just seemed like maybe some sort of residual energy of some sort of entity just wanting to let us know that it's here. Maybe it was coming to see the show for old time's sake. I don't know, but it was really, really interesting. And people I've spoke to since have said they've had their own experiences in there. It's just so, so interesting. And again, I wouldn't have given much weight to it had it not been for the fact that the whole room heard it and went silent and reacted to it. So it was undeniable that something knocked on the door. Whether it was someone passing by or playing a trick, I think that's honestly extremely unlikely. Our director was it was the opening night. He does not have time to be playing practical jokes. Taking that way, it's not even in his character to do that. But even if he decided to, like, he just doesn't have time. He was stressed. He was like, it's opening night. Let's, get this show on the road. The techie people, again, I'm not even convinced they knew where all us actors were to even, like, think to do that. And again, they're all working on their sound cues and their lighting. Like, they don't have time to be messing around with the actors. So I just don't think it was in any of their nature or any of their minds to do a practical, to make a practical joke. And it was a distinctive knock. It wasn't faint. It was loud enough that it stopped a room full of people talking. So yeah, I just thought that was really, really interesting. But I will say I didn't feel anything negative there. I didn't feel, I mean, obviously I was a little spooked after it and hearing about the whole ghost hunting thing, but I didn't feel anything negative. We did the show, everything went fine. It wasn't like a bad omen or anything like that, but I just thought it was a really interesting story. So I would love to know your thoughts on it. If you've been to this location before, if you've heard of it, or just, what you think of that experience. As I said, all the relevant links will be in the description below, but thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. Bye.